people who did it was actually one of her male gay friends.
My goodness.
It had his first beer with two other dumb guys. The gay friend was really butthurt because she just got a new boyfriend, wasn't hanging out with him much anymore. So these guys, kind of drunk, called her up and started saying racist stuff on her voicemail.
Oh, and he was the son of a governor, right?
And then it turned out that one of the guys in the back seat of the car was the son of the governor. And
was it Massachusetts?
That sounds right, but I don't know.
Okay, one of those northeast.
Yeah, and so it turned into the FBI got involved because it was a public figure, so they had to verify. Well, and actually, so the governor was like, "It's a hit job. This is a political thing," and even though he knew, and his son, like, it was, and so anyway, she got pulled into the limelight, and the way that people were like telling her that she was the victim and all that actually like kind of turned her off. She's like, "This is not. It's just so weird," and she says that, you know, some at least 2 of them, I think, went to jail for like a year.
They went to jail for that?
Something like that.
What, like,
for well, yeah, I mean, because they were, it was pretty bad. It was really bad what they said. But she's like, this was terrible what they did. They absolutely shouldn't have done it. But this could potentially ruin their lives.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
It's like one of them is suicidal now and like on drugs. He's out of jail or whatever. But
jeez.
You all?
And, okay. Anyway, so that's how she. That's how. I totally too much backstory.
So actually, what her real red pill moment?
No. I know.
Oh, yeah.
I was gonna try to short circuit, but then what happened is that she sent a tweet about Gamergate.
Yes.
And this.
I remember now.
And this, she had no idea what Gamergate was, and this girl who claimed she was. I didn't know what Gamergate was until she explained it. This girl that claimed that she was a victim of all this stuff said, "Don't do this thing," which this thing was, she was starting a company where she was going to give a service to high school principals where they would have a report card of the social media usage of their high schoolers so that rather than having to call the police, they could say, "Hey, listen, if you keep doing this, we're going to suspend you." So before it turns into a legal matter. And then the Gamergate victim called her and said, "You do this and all the trolls are going to dox you."
Yeah.
And Candace Owens like, I'm good. I'm gonna keep doing this. And the girl turned on her and started screaming at her and yelling at her. They're gonna dox you. I tell you. I promise you.
I tell you.
And then like 20 minutes later,
it all happened.
It all happened.
Yeah.
And then she went online and Googled this girl, and apparently this girl had been making up. She was faking being attacked by all of these people to make a scandal.
Hoax.
So apparently it was a hoax, and so then she started questioning everything.
Yeah.
Specifically the media, because then I think it was the New York Times called her for a quote, but they were trying to do a gotcha thing, and so they contacted another person, and that person contacted her, and so she was able to call them with a lawyer and say, "Hey, listen, are you going to publish this thing that I didn't say?" And they're like, no. And so anyway.
They told her, "Oh, well, you're not important enough for us to write about anyway."
Yeah. So if you haven't seen it, and I'm sure you haven't, Candace Owens recently discussed her disbelief in climate change on Joe Rogan's popular podcast this week. He had none of it. The exchange got heated, and Candace repeatedly distanced her own opinions from her core beliefs, saying, "This isn't the hill I'll die on." If you're among skeptics, you'll find yourself infuriated that typically open-minded Rogan delves into condescending platitudes once the topic of climate change gets broached. It's a touchstone for him that he clearly can't consider opposing views on. He just doesn't even for a moment. He's just, "You're an idiot." Yeah, here's a snippet of the opening back and forth, but watch the full video for a full dose of Joe Rogan going full election night Ben Rhodes. "You don't think we have to care about the environment," Rogan asked, invoking dogma that's eerily reminiscent of radical feminism's go-to opening line. "Don't you believe in equality? It's the definition of feminism." Candace laughs when asked if she cares about the environment, saying, "No, not even a little bit," then clarifies, saying, "I don't throw trash on the ground." Which was a really stupid comment, but from there, Joe and Candace get into a heated dialogue, which really, really is cringeworthy, what he says at the top. The whole thing, I had to stop listening to it multiple times. The same when I saw Meet the Parents for the first time. I don't know if that affected you guys like it did me, but like I almost couldn't watch it. It was so embarrassing. Like I have a really low tolerance for embarrassment, and so it's just really because both of them are showing their ignorance. The first being hey, this is like super duper complicated. That's the predictably ubiquitous argument that every zealous climate activist gives. Rogan laments how hard it is to understand the climate. It isn't, and goes on to lay the foundation for point 2. But like everyone who can grasp the complexity agrees. This is used to create doubt that lay people can discuss this, then opens the door to use groupthink as a data point, which is so true. Yeah.
Wait, Joe Rogan says that, or Candace says that?
Neither of them says this. This is the editorializing. Okay. He's saying this. So
wait, read that.
Joe Rogan Joe Rogan is paraphrased. He didn't really say this, but like everyone who can grasp the complexity agrees. Okay. So his 2-step thing is that first, this is super complicated. So probably even I don't even really understand it, which it does say. And then he's like, in fact, the only people who can grasp this complexity are scientists, and there's consensus. And so then he starts using groupthink as a data point, so that if everybody thinks the same thing, then clearly it's true.
Okay.
So, but then he
keep going.
Yeah, it's almost over. He then asks off-screen producer to get 2 links on screen. The first is from Scientific American, suggesting 87% of climate scientists agree that climate change is real and driven by human activities. Candace says, "I don't care," and essentially dismisses the website because it's commercialized. So Rogan does what any scientist would do, and he finds an even more biased source with even scarier numbers. We arrived at the second link from the Union of Concerned Scientists. Yes, actually complete with stock photo in the margins of a white activist's pasty hands trying to caress a sunset, citing 97% consensus. The 10% gap in reporting between the two sites doesn't give Rogan any pause, because science is about scientific consensus, right? Not about bad self-defeating data. Here begins the ultimate blood-boiling stupidity. Candace simply sticks by her guns, denying that she believes in it and trying to change the topic to a thought experiment. She's willing to pretend climate change is real and man-made and can't get her next string of words out. Why have an opinion on something you don't have data about, Rogan chides. This is my question. Like, I don't have an opinion on climate science. The vast majority of people who study it are in agreement that humans are affecting it. And this guy's right that both of them really do say a lot of stupid things. And I won't read the rest, but it's almost worth reading if you can just find that section, which apparently he snipped out in this video. But it's funny to see, because Joe Rogan does, his brand is that he will talk to anybody about anything, and then there's this one topic where he's just like
Okay, so here's the problem. Yeah. So 87% of scientists agree that climate change is real, and that humans affect it.
Yeah,
that's not controversial.
That's everyone agree on that. Usually.
Yeah, that's not controversial. The climate continually changes. Yeah, it's always in flux on a micro scale and a macro level scale. That's not controversial. And the fact that humans impact the climate, that's also not controversial. You drive through LA, or you go to LA in like the 60s or the 70s when it's a big bowl of smog.
Hong Kong.
Obviously, yeah, Hong Kong. This isn't controversial. It's the implications of it that are controversial.
Yes,
and the question of how much
huge economic.
First of all, how bad is the climate change going to be, and how quickly is it going to happen? Is it going to happen gradually enough that we can just sort of gradually adapt to it, or is it going to be like a sudden shift and we won't know what hit us? And two, we can't agree on how much humans impact the climate. We can't say if it's controversial if us running the AC all day is causing the polar ice caps to melt, or if that's just a natural there's all these other factors, because we haven't been keeping global climate data for a very long time relative to the age of the universe.
Have you
convenient.
And there's more. I'm totally ranting at this point, but like I said, we had a very long discussion about Marxist strategy in the classroom, in my environmental quote-unquote science class, which has 0 science in it. And one of the things that we talked about was how climate change can be used as a tool to cause people to question the wisdom of capitalism, and to sort of plant ideas in people's minds that, capitalism isn't dealing with global warming. We need to look for a new economic system. So there's a reason why it's something that shouldn't be politicized. The fact that the climate changes and that humans impact it, it's been seized, it's been appropriated, and turned into a left-wing political talking point. And so you have a lot of right-wing people who are like, I can't believe in global warming because that means that the left-wingers are right. But that's not how it should be at all.
Because they believe in it.
Yeah, exactly. That's stupid.
Well, actually, I mean, in one sense, the left-wingers are doing something correct because they band together, even if they don't all agree, they all agree. You know, like, oh, that's your cause, this is my cause, we share causes.
They don't.
But that's
agree,
because
though.
they crucify one another if they step out of line.
Yeah, they eat one another very harshly. It's true. Anyway.
And
Or they talk about such inane and esoteric stuff that it's so abstract that disagreement is futile anyway.
Yeah.
Did you hear the president weigh in on CF2 chlorofluorocarbons? He's like, they say I can't use hairspray. I mean, I live in an apartment. It's closed off. How does that affect the environment?
Okay.
I want to use a little hairspray.
I want to hear this. When was this? Like,
I don't know. It was edited together with a bunch of him talking about the Space Force, actually.
okay.
Trump hairspray.
Okay.
Yeah, ozone. Yeah.
There we go. I can't wait for this. Don't mind me.
We need to figure out a way to have the
I can.
audio on this. Yeah.
I just need to.
So this could be like we warm up with something like this.
Yeah,
We talk
yeah,
about some viral video or something, and then we go into like the meat of the discussion.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Oh, and is Nick supposed to call in?
Oh yeah, we can get him to call in, sure.
Okay. I don't know. The audio is going to be horrible,
Okay.
but he's actually driving through Phoenix right now.
What? Tell him to say hi to my grandma.
Let's see. Ah, there we go.
Call
there it
Nick
is.
Fosty.
Calling Nick Frost.
Fosty.
There it is.
Hello.
Hey. You're yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? We are recording.
We haven't officially started. We're just chatting.
I don't know how the audio is going to be on this. There has to be a better way to have someone call in than, you know.
Sound really bad. I'm in a truck, so I was wondering.
You sound fine, but I don't think you're going to be able to hear us. Maybe
I can hear,
can
I
you?
can hear you perfectly
Oh, really?
right now. Anyway.
All right. Well, let's give it a shot. And I don't know how the mic's going to pick you up either.
Yeah, just do a sound check with everyone.
Oh, it's actually better than I thought.
Maybe we should do it on mine because this uses the
This time,
network.
everybody sound off, so I can tell you how I hear
That's
you.
good.
It's Jordan Parrish. Sound off.
Oh, I know you.
Jonathan White.
Andrew.
Oh, yeah, I know
Pogue.
you too.
What?
So,
Andrew, yeah, I can hear you. I can hear
hey,
you.
Nick. Andrew's going to call you on his phone because I think his speaker's a little bit better. Okay.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Or network, maybe.
Is that what
By the way, guys, we should get mics. Just
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I just knew even if I ordered, it wouldn't be here in time yet. So
Yeah.
I didn't order it, but
as soon as I can't spare the cash right now, but I think with maybe not this next podcast, but the one after that, I think I'll be good. And by the way,
don't you already have one?
yeah, but I think I'm gonna get the same type of mic as you guys, so that the audio. And this is really old too, so I don't know if it's gonna break on me.
And those mics, all of them will need to plug into a computer, though, right?
Yeah, and I'm not sure how that works. I don't know how.
Because I don't have a laptop, so I don't.
Don't worry about it. I think that we can plug them all into my computer. We might have to get like a USB interface. or
Tree.
something. Yeah, USB tree. Also, I couldn't help but notice that they come in 6 different colors. So we should all get a different color mic.
So that we don't mix them up. Isn't it called Blue Snowflake?
Snowball. Blue snowball. Yeah.
Well, then why aren't they just all blue?
None of them. Oh, there is a blue one
I
actually.
want to get the red blue snowball.
I want to get the green.
Wait, can we hear
snow-
Trump?
Oh yeah.
I want to hear it. I only heard the
Okay,
mashup
that's
version.
not gonna work.
Oh, hold, but first a word from our sponsor.
So,
You know, airspace not like it used to be. It used to be real good.
Oh, sorry.
They got a little spray. Thank you, everybody. That is great. My hair look okay? Got a little spray.
It looks awful as usual.
Give me a little spray. You know, you're not allowed to hairspray anymore because it affects the ozone, you know. I said, you mean to tell me, because you know hairspray's not like it used to be. When I put on that helmet.
Technical problems.
We're gonna have to up the sophistication of our audio here. Because there's ways. I know there are ways you can have like a real quality audio stream. I just don't know how, and I don't know how much equipment is going to be involved.
It's funny, even Rogan with Unlimited Cash, he was having technical difficulties on the podcast with Candace Owens. He was like freaking out. He was like, "We gotta fix this, young Jamie." It's like, cut that shit off.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we can ditch the video. We can
First,
just
a word
start.
from our
We should
sponsor. Blue Apron makes delicious meals.
Did the phone call not go through to him?
You can, No, you're gonna have to do it.
You mean
you mean me?
Jordan?
Yeah.
Well, do you have a bigger phone than me?
Yeah.
It's bigger,
Yeah, the speaker's probably bigger too.
but it's a Microsoft phone.
Actually, no, my phone is smaller. That's not my phone. This is my phone. On the ground.
Do you have like a Bluetooth speaker or something? We should have figured this out before we got here.
Bluetooth for what?
Him as audio, so it sounds.
Here, do you want to call him on my phone?
Yeah. Oh yeah, you don't have his number.
Keypad, yeah.
Very large.
I don't know. I don't want to
screen.
spend too much time on that right now.
Yeah.
It's too bar right now.
So okay, I guess we can say that conversation is that ship has sailed and move on to the meat.
Yeah.
Okay.
But first, a word from our sponsor.
Good warm up.
Oh, you still want to hear Trump?
Not particularly.
Why do you keep saying first word from our sponsor?
No.
Oh,
I thought he was our sponsor.
No blue apron.
Blue Apron, obviously. You know that Portlandia is good.
Oh no.
Hey Nick.
Yeah.
All right, I think we're connected. I don't know how this is gonna work though.
What?
Hey Nick, you there?
Oh, is this better? Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay. I got headphones on. I thought I could just talk through the headphones, but I'm not holding the phone up to my mouth so you can hear me.
Okay.
Don't crash.
Yeah, dude, be safe, dude.
No, do crash. No, I don't. Please don't.
No, I'm not driving.
You're not driving?
Good.
Oh, no, my cohort's driving.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
Hi, cohort.
Yeah. Are you kidding?
You-
I'll just do a podcast while I'm driving. 27-foot long truck pulling 8,000 pounds of equipment.
Jeez.
Wait, are you helping somebody move or what? What are you doing?
No, that's the thing for work. They spontaneously needed to go pick up some cargo and bring it back to Maryland from LA. So I flew in yesterday.
So you're doing like an awesome cross-country road trip.
Yeah, that's what how I view it.
That's awesome.
Good time.
So you're in Arizona right now?
We just left Phoenix.
Yeah, I will be in Phoenix tomorrow night.
Weird.
Yeah, I know.
Folks from Phoenix.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, Andrew's from Phoenix.
Ah.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, you're from Tucson.
Tucson.
Tucson, Arizona.
Oh, Tucson?
Yeah.
Yeah. My uncle lived in Phoenix for a while, but he didn't like it there.
Little brother of Phoenix.
Yeah.
Phoenix is all right.
It's hot.
Yeah. Sorry.
Like 102, I think, right now.
Jeez.
All right, so
I'm not in charge of this podcast, huh?
What?
I'm glad John's in charge of this.
So in case we have any technical difficulties and stuff, why don't you go first? Your thoughts on the documentary?
Sure, okay, so I taken my notes because I had a whole bunch of notes that I took while I walked it.
Uh-huh.
I left it at home.
Okay. Hello?
with the memory of it. My memory going from my memory.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I know more things will come to me as you guys talk too, but
So
the things I can remember offhand, I'm really pissed that I don't have my notes. All right. So basically, obviously, we're dealing with the presuppositionalist, right?
Yeah.
He supposes from go to start a playing field of the God he believes in is true and the Bible that he believes in is true, right?
Yeah.
So, obviously, I can't start from that position just because it would be intellectually dishonest, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
for the sake of discussion, yeah, we'll let it go forward with this. So, I feel like he makes a lot of around the whole thing, like, for example, what was one of them? Atheists all know, everyone, not just atheists, but everyone, including other religions, other people that believe other religions, they know that the God of the Bible is real. So I don't know what else to say except that just that falls flat for me. It totally falls flat. Like he's saying, you know that you're born with the knowledge of that. I just don't feel like he justifies that at any point in the documentary, other than he just asserts it. So I don't know what else to say about that, I guess.
Yeah, this certainly isn't like a closer, clincher, definite answer to that. But one exchange that I saw on, he's got hours and hours of unedited conversations he has with people, and one that he does, I think it's in Venice Beach, California, and there's this guy. He's pushing a bike. He's got a bunch of Buddhist literature in the front basket of the bike, and they start talking about Buddha, and he's Saiten Bruggencate starts doing his shtick, and the man, after about 15-20 minutes, he unravels his story about why he's so pissed at God. He's like, my brother was a pastor. He was the best man that I ever knew. He was a good father, a great husband. He was such a better man than me, and he died of bone cancer. And I was just so mad at God, and that's why I'm into Buddhism now. And the point that Saiten makes is, well, why aren't you mad at Buddha for letting that happen? Clearly, you're mad at the God that you know that exists, that is in charge of the world. And, when the time when it's most clear that all people believe in a transcendental God that is responsible for the entirety of existence is when their life is threatened, or when their worldview is threatened. Because there's kind of a reaction that does not usually get directed against the false gods. People will start to question their religion, but seem to direct their anger and their ire against the true God. So that's one evidence point that he would probably give if he were here, but I don't know. I'm not him.
Gotcha. Okay. Can I respond to that?
Yeah.
All right, so just about that story, I don't know how much time we should spend on this story since it's like secondhand or whatever, but so this guy was raised Christian, right? Had a pastor brother. So this guy knew the Christian God his whole life.
Yeah.
Right? That's the one he's familiar with.
Yeah, that's his hardwired.
Then he goes on a rebellion, you might say, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he becomes a Buddhist because he's just like an angry teenager or whatever. But, I mean, you could easily reverse it. You could say, well, this one guy who grew up Buddhist or Hare Krishna or Muslim or whatever, he had a imam brother and he died of bone cancer, and then he cursed Allah or he cursed whatever, insert God here. And then he converted to Christianity, or he lugged around a bunch of Bibles and his bike and he was angry at the Muslim God or the So you can just reverse the story altogether. It just seems like this guy, he was angry at something that may or may not have ever existed in the first place. I mean, insert the name of any random deity. So, I mean, I get your point, and I agree with you in a certain way. But where I guess where I break off from you is that guy knew I think the guy was familiar with and was raised with the Christian God. Therefore, he was mad at that God.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you see what I'm saying? Like if he was raised with Odin and Thor,
yeah,
he'd be angry at Odin and Thor because he would associate them with giving his dad bone cancer. See what I'm saying?
Yeah. So that's the biggest problem I had with it too. But I think that his argument, the core of his argument was that if you don't believe in a objective truth, then why are you can't argue for objective truth. Mm-hmm. So that works, but it only works for people who don't have who haven't adhered to an objective truth. Like that argument isn't going to work for a Muslim. It's someone who grew up Muslim. It's not going to work for someone who grew up Buddhist. That was the biggest problem I had. But when you are talking with like postmodernists, people who don't believe in like any type of meta narrative whatsoever, they think that every sense of morality and justice is a human construct. But they'll sit there and argue with you about religion. He's just calling their bluff. So I think that's the most appropriate application to his argument right there. But it's not going to work for Muslims. It's not going to work for Jews. It's going to have to be a different approach.
I think technically it wouldn't work for anyone who supposes a deity of any kind. If you could say, I mean, the same way that Sai says you have to start with the belief in Christian God. I mean, that exact same approach and method could be used with any other religion. Any other believer in any other, faith could use his exact same method, and it would be like, two opposing magnets just bouncing off each other if him and them got together. And I think that I watched a thing with him, and I don't think I found anything with Sai debating any Jews, but I found plenty of things with Sai debating Christians, and he's not very well welcomed, it seems, at least by the evidentialists, because there's a great, I mean, all of the Christians scholars that I've studied, listened to over all the years they were all evidentialists. I've never come across a presuppositionalist. Yeah, so his method could be used by anyone in any other religion. So you say, well, atheists couldn't do it. Well, I guess technically not, because atheists don't presuppose anything. They don't say, okay, we have to start here or here or here, or with this deity or these gods or this, this faith or whatever. As an atheist, agnostic, or whatever the word you want to use, right? Depends on the semantics. The person who just says, I was just born, okay, and I was a baby. When I came out of the womb, I didn't know the word for tree was tree. I didn't know that the sky was blue because I hadn't even seen it yet. And so you're learning bit by bit incrementally, right? And it's your brain taking in information as it does. But to have a presupposition where you're starting at this other platform that just comes from whatever, some faith or ancient book in this case, right? Mm-hmm. Like I said at the beginning, it's just a non-starter. It's a non-starter for a discussion. And I think the reason that, by and large, you're going to find most Christians not agreeing with Sai's method is because it's not effective in conversion. It's not effective in reaching out to people who don't see things the way you do, whether they're atheists or just other religions. So I don't expect his method to really gain much traction. I looked into it. It looks like it's been around for quite a while, but it seems to be dismissed by a lot of big-time, at least evidentialists, like William Lane Craig and some of these other guys actually, William Lane Craig kind of went at it pretty hard. He doesn't seem to have a lot of friends. So, I mean, not to say that makes his premise true or false or whatever, but...
Mm-hmm. Right.
Doesn't have a lot of what?
Friends.
Friends, oh.
Less appealing.
Eric Hovind is a good friend. I saw that. Anyway.
Yeah.
So,
what do you guys think?
Well, I'm curious, would you be able to, the main point that he makes is anybody who does not have the God of the Bible as their starting point, how do they justify rationality? And so since you do not affirm the God of the Bible, how do you, and that's why in the Hangout site, try to recommend people read Descartes or any of the other people who have struggled with that, trying to get to the absolute foundation of, well, how do you trust your senses, and what is the ultimate arbiter of what you decide is true? What is truth? So I know that's an enormous question, but I'm curious if you thought about that, and if and the last thing I'll say before you answer is, I read I listened to 3 hours of this podcast called Reasonable Doubts. I don't know if you've heard of it.
No.
It's 4 atheist guys that kind of do a news roundup of all the evil religions in the world, and then do anti-apologetics. And so they did 2 back-to-back episodes against presuppositional apologetics. They never mentioned Seitan, because Seitan is not actually an apologist. I believe he doesn't even have a college degree. He works in a boiler room in a university in Canada or something like that. But
that's fine, and he can be whatever he is. Doesn't matter what.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I know that doesn't disqualify him or anything, but it's just he'll be the first to say he's not well versed in anything but this argument, but he believes that this argument is what is powerful in forcing unbelievers to make an account for how they say one thing is true and another is not. So, but anyway, the reason I'm bringing up the podcast is these 4 men over the course of several hours, they couldn't do it. And they weren't interviewing a presuppositionalist, they weren't being attacked, but they were admitting that they really didn't know. And it was interesting, because that was the one point that even with all the time in the world, without confrontational Seitan in their face, they still couldn't give an answer.
Yeah, and I think that's that's the situation where his argument is the most useful. But beyond that, like saying that that atheists are suppressing belief in God, like that's, I mean, it Scripture says that.
Yeah.
But that's something that you can't prove. You can't prove what people feel in their heart of hearts. You certainly can't prove what everyone feels in their heart of hearts.
Mm-hmm. Well,
so unless you are convinced that Scripture is the Word of God, then that's not going to do much for you.
But for the purposes of an ideological debate, nothing is ever proved in an ideological debate.
Yeah, well,
you present strong evidences and a coherent narrative, and then people decide which one they want to believe.
If you believe in the Bible, if you believe in what the Bible says, then it makes sense to believe that people believe in their heart of hearts in a God. So that's, and I understand that's what presuppositional is, but I mean, it's not like, I hate in any topic at all, whether it's religion, politics, anything like that, I hate it when people come out with, like the perfect argument. It just never, it's an argument usually that has applications, but it's just not, there's no silver bullet really, it's complicated. And also, you have to have situational awareness in your discussions too. I mean, his argument is appropriate in certain contexts, especially like when he was talking to other Christians. I think it was especially relevant in that situation. And when you're talking to people who say that they don't know anything, that's nonsense. People know things. They know things.
Yeah.
But, and I guess we keep coming back to this. You talk to someone who believes in the Quran. You talk to a Jew who believes in the Torah. They're just gonna laugh at you. It's like that's you. I don't believe that way.
It's perceived as mind games to someone who wasn't raised in the same Christian environment. Although I can't, fully picture that myself, I do have verses to back that up. You raise child in the Lord, and then they'll follow the correct path when they grow up or something like that. I'm terrible at mentioning verses, but it goes something like that.
Train up a child in the way that they should go, and when they are older, they will not depart from it.
Thank you. Yeah. That's handy. Yeah, it has something to do with that, I think. Anyone who wasn't, it'll fall on deaf ears. It's not always, but for the most part, I think a lot of people will view that as a kind of an offensive, like aggressive mind games sort of deal.
Where if you're debating in a public forum, that might be exactly the approach that you need. You know, like you when you're in a situation where you're trying to come up with the truth and you're not just trying to kiss each other's butts by playing along with with flawed arguments. You know, that's exactly what he needs. You know.
Yeah.
But I would say I was
it's interesting,
affected by that myself, because I'm a Christian. I'm very bad at it, but and I believe in God. I believe I would say I'm 97% sure that the Bible is the Word of God as well, and I should live as if I believe that. Mm-hmm. I should act on those assumptions, and say, oh, I know things. Yeah, there's no point in me like pretending that I don't think that way. Yeah. Especially as you get older in life, there's no point. Act on your convictions.
Before we called you, Nick, I was asking everybody.
What?
How do you know that?
How do I know?
He's trying to cite and we won.
Yeah, I guess you could say I'm taking. It's a gamble. No, I don't. I don't know that for a fact. And see, that's another thing I disagree with him on. I don't think it's unreasonable to say I could be wrong. And I think that's one of the core things about Western society that has made it successful, is the ability to have a certain amount of respect for the fact that you might be wrong and your neighbor who believes a different thing might be right. And you sort of just, that respect enables you to coexist. So that's another thing I disagree with him on. I don't believe, maybe I'm just a bad Christian or whatever, but I don't believe that it's unreasonable to say that that you could be wrong. I don't think that's betraying your faith to say that.
Well said. I think that's very well said.
But I don't know who would say he'd march in and demolish me. I don't know. But
So I don't know, Nick, if you were about to answer earlier. Did you think at all about how you would give a defense for your basically your presuppositions, I guess, the things that you take as givens, so that you can make sense of the world?
Well, yeah, I mean, I thought quite a bit about this. I mean, that was an hour-and-a-half long documentary, so I sat through every minute of it, every single minute.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I did. I contemplated this quite a bit. And it's a fair question, how do we know what we say we know, or we feel we know, or whatever, word you want to say. I guess I'll try to illustrate with this. So I was literally just reading just minutes before I talked to you guys, and I put the link to this out in the chat room, but in the past, people believed strange things, right? What we would say, and I just happened to come across this little thing that said, and in ancient times, people believed that weasels gave birth out their ears and conceived through their mouths. And
wait, you mean they don't?
Weasels, the creature.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, of course, we know that this isn't true now, right? But it was widely held. It was believed by the masses in ancient times. And I think the Jews even made them not kosher because of these strange things about them or something. I don't know about that part for sure, but I think they did. But so anyway, we know that that's not the case now, right? Don't we know this? Do we not?
I don't. I mean, so if no, and I'm not trying to be funny when I say that, but like there are lots of things that I would say like casually that I know that I don't actually like. I mean, I've never seen a weasel, let alone seen a pregnant weasel, let alone see how that weasel got pregnant, let alone seen how that weasel got rid of the baby that was in its stomach. So I mean, there are lots of things that we would say that we know, but even if we see them, like I don't understand the mechanisms, so I might think that I know it, but I'm actually all that I did was I saw it, I've experienced it. So and I'm not trying to get.
All right, let's make it even easier. Yeah, are you wearing shoes right now?
No, I'm not.
You're not wearing shoes.
No.
How dare you say?
Okay.
We can say that I am.
You're not wearing shoes?
Yes, I'm.
How do you know you're not wearing shoes?
Yeah, well, I know that I'm not wearing shoes the same way that you know that you're in a car, which is
Right.
through God, which is his argument that the reason that this world is intelligible is because it was made by an intelligent being, and so therefore our rationality and our senses are things that can be trusted. Now, some of us do have such degraded senses that we put them in institutions and we don't allow them to make choices that the rest of us can, because they clearly have lost that grip with reality that the rest of us can do a better job at. But so yes, the reason that I know that I don't have shoes on is because I have memory. What?
Well, how do you know it's not multiple gods? How do you know it's not 19 gods that made the earth and made everything and make everything intelligible? How do you know it's one, the one you believe in, and not those other 18 that I just posited? How do you know that?
Yeah, which is through the Bible, which is God's word, which I understand you will have issue with.
Yeah, well, why not the Quran? Or why not why not the Epic of Gilgamesh?
Yeah.
You know, that predates the Bible quite a bit. Why not?
I mean, so we could get pretty deep on this, and I am not super knowledgeable of Islam, but
That's the problem.
I mean, I do know that that Muhammad was a convert to Judaism who got very dissatisfied with Judaism and then said that he thought that the Hebrew scriptures were wrong and rewrote them in a manner that was very similar to Joseph Smith. So, I mean, so for me, that's an easy...
Torching all the prophets here.
That's an easy no to Muhammad, because it's derivative of, and which...
I mean, Islam is one of how many thousands of, or maybe even hundreds of thousands of religions that have existed, so keep listening.
Yeah, well, and I mean, I am not knowledgeable of all of those religions, but
There you go.
And that's why I think that you can have respect for someone who has a different belief than you, because the world is so vast. 7 billion people in the world, and however many billions that have lived before and died, and they've come up with such different ways of explaining the world, and a lot of them contradict each other, and some of them there's like the super groups, the one that has survived thousands of years of trial, and and they've stayed intact, but I mean, and that's the thing, like it's complex, and that's the problem I have with this argument, because you can't know what's going on in people's hearts. Centering the conversation around, you believe, in your heart that God is real and that it's the God of the Bible. I don't think that's. It's intellectually lazy, I would say. It makes sense, but I think before you get to that point, you have to decide for yourself why you would believe that the Bible is the Word of God, after you've decided on a belief in God. And I know he kept saying like, oh, well, that's you putting God on trial, but no, it's not. It's me trying to survive and figure my way out in the world, in a confusing world with a lot of, and I know that I can be deceived, and you just have to try and make your way with that. It's not like it's one thing to, and God doesn't necessarily appear to you and lay everything out for you.
May I think that's the reason why it would primarily work on people rooted in Christianity. For example, if you approach non-Christian with, oh, you're putting God on trial, they're not going to give two flying hoots. It's nothing. It's like, a dust mite. You just brush it away. Like, it's not a big deal. So a big deal for Christians, it's like, oh my goodness, you're putting God on trial, or Jews, they think it's a big deal when you do that, but it's not as grand of an effect for non-Christians. Like we were saying, it is localized effectiveness for this method. Not my preferred method, but I'd never heard of it before now.
I agree.
Yeah, it's interesting though.
It has its applications. Don't get me wrong. I do think it has its applications,
Yeah.
especially in a postmodern world where people will say things like, "All I know is that I know nothing." It's stupid. Like that's literally not true. You could, well, then again, I mean, I could be wrong.
No, I agree, man.
And I don't care if he thinks that I was crazy for saying that. I think that's the one of the scary things about life.
It's being honest.
Yeah, it's being intellectually honest.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that you can't look at the evidence, you can't look at the circumstances in the world and piece together, as best as you can, doing your damnedest to be honest with yourself and to look for the truth. You can look at the evidence and make suppositions based on that, even if you realize that you could be wrong. It's like you can't live your life in a haze of confusion in saying like, oh, I don't know things. You have to decide on things if you're going to function in life.
Yeah, even Christians admit that you can free will. I guess there is the whole Calvinist and other argument,
Arminian?
but Calvinist versus
Arminians?
free will.
I know what you're talking
Predestination versus free will argument.
Yeah, that's a flashback to junior high right there.
Anyway, the Christians will usually admit that we do have agency. We have choices that we do make. We can choose to obey God or not. So this is just another aspect, I think, of this. This guy takes it to the next level. I have never seen such intense devotion to a sect of, you take one verse and extrapolate your entire worldview off of one verse. I have never seen it to this extent. He can do whatever the heck he wants. I do respect him for trying to defend, as he says it, defend his faith. But I think it's really just, I'm trying to share my view with others so that I'm, completing my Christian duty. It's not necessarily defending his faith. He's going out there actively, militantly seeking people out and trying to convert them. That's literally what he's doing. He doesn't want to admit that. Okay, well, I have to be honest here. Mm-hmm. I only watched like the first 12 minutes. I could not get through this.
He's not.
I watched the whole thing.
Giving anything for his case. He's just saying, I know this, and here's what I know. And by the way, I know that you can't know anything different.
Yeah, well, he would not take offense at all at you saying that he was preaching, because this argument is incidental to. This argument is incidental to the greater truth, which is Christ. It's just that you can't. So I had a professor in college who once said that your first step in evangelism is bringing people back to first century Jewish thought, because that's kind of the ground upon which most of the gospel is written to. Greek and Roman and Jewish thought, which I'm pretty sure you could still be executed. I don't think they did it very often, but I think you could be executed in Rome for being an atheist, for denying the gods. It was seen as
that's what Socrates.
Yeah, Socrates. That was hundreds of years before Jesus. But I think it was still kind of around. But I mean, in Jesus' day, at this point, the emperor was now divine. So I think people had actually gotten a little disillusioned with the idea of the gods, and they were like, "What?" And so I don't think they enforced it. But still, it was on the books. Like, it was expected that you would accept some kind of divinity, whether it's the emperor, whether it's Zeus or whatever. And so there weren't people going around, and it's kind of jokingly said, but Pontius Pilate is the first existentialist because he when has Jesus on trial, he says, "What is truth?" He wants to kind of deflect Jesus's questions and surety by saying, what is truth? Who could know it? And that actually probably could have gotten him in trouble with Rome, because Rome would say, well, the truth is that the emperor is God. So, to Andrew's point that he seemed like he was extrapolating certain verses to try to attack other people rather than just share what his beliefs were. I don't think that's
not attack, like help them. He believes he's helping them.
Dude, okay, I'll tell you one thing that.
Well, so the reason that I would say is I think that the Bible does support most of what he does. 2 Corinthians 10:4-6 says, "For the weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh, but have divine power to destroy strongholds. We destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God, and take every thought captive to obey Christ, being ready to punish every disobedience when your obedience is complete." Now, the punishment that he's speaking about there is to a church. He's not talking about going and punishing unbelievers because they don't believe in God. He's talking about people who are misbehaving in the church and saying, well, I can do it because Christian liberty. And he's saying, no, it's not okay. I think is the church where some guy had taken his father's wife and was openly flaunting it in the church and doing some perverted stuff.
So here's the problem with that. So, okay, using scripture to talk to other Christians and convict them makes sense. And when you're building a strategy for addressing people who don't believe in Christianity, it makes sense as a guiding strategy.
Yeah.
But if you sit there and read Corinthians 10:4-6 to someone who believes that the Bible is, something that was strung together by the patriarchy to keep minority groups in submission to capitalism,
they're just emotionally not there.
You're just not emotionally there,
Well, except
they have no motive for joining you.
Many of the people that he spoke to in this documentary are in that place, and they join him emotionally.
Yes.
I would disagree with that, because what do you mean
they joined him emotionally?
Well,
everyone in that documentary was really frustrated with him.
Yeah, which I felt like what Jordan was implying was people are just going to say, well, that's your opinion, man, and walk away.
Okay. There's going to be the people who engage with someone like that, but what you can't record is the dozens and dozens of people who just shake their heads and walk away and go on with their life. That there's going to be a certain type of person who engages with that type of discussion, but most people are going to be like, this is BS, I'm walking away.
So what would you posit as a better way to try to share that?
I'm not,
case by case. It's case by case.
I'm not bashing like what he's doing.
No.
I mean,
I'll just say this: there's applications for his approach. There are.
No, I mean, what would be another approach? What are you saying is?
It would depend on what your goal is.
Yeah,
what's the goal, Jonathan?
I like the case by case.
Well, it's case by case. Like, people are complex, But there might be people who already believe in God, who already believe in the Bible, but they have other things that they're working with, and that's something that.
We're all unique.
I mean, you can say that they may believe in their heart, but there's more to the discussion than just the intellect. There's also emotions. And that's something that I think that I would like to think that Jesus, as a human being, would have compassion for.
Yeah.
So everybody, like every situation is different. You can't say there's one blanket approach to everything. It's more like you have to go with an attitude of like, what's the best thing for this situation.
That's true.
Well, so what would you make of the verse? It's actually two verses in Psalm. It's repeated twice. Psalm 14:1 and Psalm 53:1. The fool says in his heart, there is no God. And there are no two ways about that. The Bible does not say that somebody who doesn't believe in God is misguided. It doesn't say that they are mistaken. It doesn't say that they are confused. It says that they are a fool.
Well, I agree with that.
Okay.
I think most of humanity throughout the ages and in modern times, if you're not either Muslim or Christian, you are in the minority. Most of the world is either Muslim or Christian. So I have very little patience for people who stand up in intellectual circles and say that belief in God is foolishness, because the people who say that with such confidence are such a minority. It's pathetic.
But now it sounds like you're assigning truth.
Okay, but real quick, be careful with that, because that logic isn't sound, because that's a appeal to the masses.
Yeah, you're right.
That's
You're
what
right.
I was going to say.
But I would
most people think this way, therefore it must be.
No,
You can't go down that route. You don't want to go down that route.
I admit that that's a fallacy, but it is, taken as like, say, one star in a constellation of evidence. It's a significant.
You can choose to believe what others believe or not.
You can't make up your mind based on that. But
So I want to drill down on that, though, Jordan. What would you give as the reason for why you agree with this?
Because I think that because the world is such a coherent place, and humans are such coherent beings. I think that's basically the result of something had to set this up. It's so complete and coherent that it's madness to think that it just came out of nowhere. That's the heart of it for me. And we can argue.
Okay, that gets you a deity, but that doesn't get you to the Christian deity.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
You still have another step or more, perhaps, to.
Right, and I acknowledge that, and I will openly say that is something that I struggle with to this day. But I would say that the way I get to Christianity is simply because, again, it's the coherence that I have found in my life, with my family and with the states in the world that have been the most successful. A huge portion of them have based their socioeconomic structures on elements that are in the Judeo-Christian way of thinking, and specifically in the Christian way of thinking. And I guess that's sort of appealing to the masses as well. But I'm just simply I'm taking that as a significant, but not deciding factor in the evidence that I've sort of accumulated throughout my life.
Nice. Yeah.
Right. Well, China's got like 1 billion people there that most of them have never heard of Jesus, let alone Christianity. And you can say, well, they're communists and they have this or that issue, but hey, I mean, they still have a pretty well-running economy and social structure. They have their culture.
Yeah.
Yada yada. I mean, you'd say, well, it's not based on Judeo-Christian, so it's doomed to fail someday. Somewhere down the line, the house of cards is going to fall. But
well, if the Bible is true, then any structure that's created by flawed humans is going to fail inevitably. So, I just think the societies that have the ones that have come closest to getting it right.
Every civilization that's been ever erected by human beings has fallen, whether it was based off of whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't understand what you said.
Every civilization has fallen, regardless of what it's built on. I think he said. Right.
Yeah, but there have been trends throughout history.
Sure.
Oh.
I mean, the Persian Empire. Look how long that lasted. That was,
And it's still limping along.
Well, they didn't run it well, though. They were barbaric. They were bloodthirsty. They were, whatever. You can say all those other things too. But don't we have also those issues? So I don't know. It's hard for me to see it as it's all of this goodness we have in America is because of Christianity somewhere.
I didn't say that. No, I don't necessarily buy that myself.
I'll say that every day.
Because I think that Christianity is a huge factor in the success of the U.S. But I think the reason why America has been so successful is that it was just able to synthesize all the best ideas in the world at the time, and they were such good ideas that we're still kind of coasting along on them. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
Yes.
Science has gotten us pretty far. I'm driving a big-ass truck, carrying 8,000 pounds of equipment. It's also
it's not all just science. It's not all just science because, I mean, a lot of people do science, but not everybody is successful as a scientist. So for science to be successful, there have to be pre-existing intellectual conditions, Like, your mind has to be ready to do science in a way that is going to be effective. and
Right,
productive.
like don't kill Galileo just because he has ideas about astronomy.
Bitter
He's not
much?
a blasphemer. He's just observing the universe, okay? Don't kill him. Hope or whoever.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's funny.
He had a smart mouth on him.
So
He blasphemed Nick. I'm just kidding.
he said the Pope.
Okay, I'll shut up.
He said the Pope was ugly.
Yeah. And I take offense to the guy,
He said-
Galileo.
Did you ever?
Oh, the current Pope is not ugly. The last dude, holy moly.
Oh man.
Did you have a point you were going to make 10 minutes back?
As soon as I saw that guy, like, that like Darth Sidious from Star Wars. Anyway, sorry,
Yeah.
this is again rude. I'm being rude.
Okay, so yeah, let me try and sum up my total opinion in a few sentences. I will try.
So wait, before
Okay,
you do,
go
you said
ahead.
you only watched 12 minutes.
Yeah. Sorry, guys.
That reminds me, I had to write a paper about a biography of Hitler back in my first semester of college, and the professor in the endnotes of my paper, he's like, "This is very well written. I liked it." But it feels like you only just delved into the vast, you just barely scratched the surface of this novel. And I'm like, that's because I read like 10% of it.
You told him?
No, I never
Okay,
told him
yeah.
that.
Oh man. Yeah, that'll happen. So maybe I'm missing a huge piece. Maybe he brings it all around full circle. But I stopped when this lady was talking at 13 minutes and 30 seconds because sorry, I'm gonna blame like the ADD on this one because maybe I have a little too few patience for this sort of thing. But anyway, I just knew from the beginning, like, okay, he's gonna take this and just go on this whole direct path from this one verse. You're just gonna go on a direct path. Everyone knows who God is. Go. And then, I mean, I know there are, like you said, other verses which do back him up, and I'm not saying he's wrong. It's just not my personal approach that I would choose in attempting to, let's say, quote, convert a person. I'd say my general approach would be, to appeal more to the emotions. This seems more of like a mental thing. Like to me, this would work. This would work on me. To something, to some point of, an existentialist or let's say postmodernist, perhaps it would work. Anyway, the whole idea that I gathered was, he can. He'll do his thing. He's going to train other people to go and do the same thing in the same method. But approaching it from this angle is not fun for me. I guess that's the whole point I wanted to make is I go where the fun is. This seems to be like cut and pasted. I'm too improvisational for that. That's not me. So, I respect the guy. He seems like a smart guy. And it seems to be having some effect, so that's good.
Well, this will probably break down, but let me try and run through some of his stuff on,
Okay, thank you.
I have not internalized it all to know the move, so you'll probably lose me a couple minutes in, but so a first start would be, and this is for you honestly.
Yes.
Where do you get truth in your worldview?
Truth.
Where does it derive from? And when you're faced with making a decision on whether or not you believe something, which would go back to the thing that you posted, Nick, about is belief a choice?
Yeah. Well, I would say it's 20% gut, 5% fear, 30% senses, and 40% trusting others.
Wait, those things add up to truth?
To truth, yes.
Then it sounds like truth will change if you have
Yeah, your
hamburger
perception.
versus-
Exactly. It's
Well,
all based on
okay,
perception.
So
Can
do
we
you believe,
separate-
do you believe that there's an ultimate truth outside of perception?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll ask that.
So yeah, and I'll hold my peace. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I have some
actually,
fire. Though.
Yes, I
Here.
believe there's an absolute truth.
We have the internet up.
Okay.
So that I don't screw it up. He actually has the link that I sent you guys, proofthatgodexists.org. I think he has an interactive. You click through, and you say you do or do not agree with something, and then he'll show you the logical implications of what you just said. And .org. Okay.
Wait, so it's like
So
a
this is it's
input
it's a
generation?
test, yeah. So
Okay.
so the first one has 4 choices. Absolute truth exists. Absolute truth does not exist. And then I know if absolute truth exists, or I don't care if.
Okay, absolute truth exists.
So he selected it does exist, and then we're given the option of I know something to be true, or I don't know anything to be true.
Okay.
So what are we going to select? So and
Don't know anything to be true.
Does it end with
Andrew says he does not know anything to be true. The next question is that statement true or false?
Oh,
That
a
you
logical
don't-
fallacy. Oh, I see.
So, and then you're faced with the fact that you have to either affirm the fact that you don't know anything, which,
Right.
yeah, like you said, is a logical fallacy.
Yeah, logical fallacy. This is the whole point. If it's a logical fallacy, that's only going to appeal to the scientific, whatever side of the brain minded people.
Well, that's
not the
No, I mean, he's
the robots.
I feel
Like
like
me.
No, it doesn't.
I mean, they purposefully, I feel like, put people who are not like that in the video, who they hear themselves saying that, and then they don't know what it's called, but they just know that they just said something really stupid, and they go, "Whoa, you got me there. Let me think about that."
Yeah.
And that's exactly what he's trying to do. He's trying to get people to think through their unassummed presuppositions. So
No, let me just
That's a
break this
useful
down.
tool.
Okay.
Since this is way too overgeneralized, this quiz, it takes for granted the fact that there are very many definitions for the word no, and anything also has many definitions. True also has many definitions. So you can have many people clicking true, and then what does it do?
so
Knowledge squared. What is that?
Well, so I know something to be true. I don't know anything to be true. He said this is not a glitch. Think about it. So it brought you back to the same page that you were on before.
But it's squared to a factor of 2.
Well, because you just contradicted yourself. So
Know something to be true. I don't know anything to be true.
But this is
So it's like a circle. Goes around a circle,
it's
right?
circular.
well,
like
it won't necessarily. There's a bunch of different paths to follow down. I mean, if
I wanna jump
Go
in
ahead.
here. So okay, this is something that I've thought about a lot. I believe that there is universal truth.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that it's regardless of what I believe, what I want to believe, there are things that are true, whether I want them to be true or not.
Mm-hmm.
I have faith in that. What I question is my ability to perceive that truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what people. Even
That's-
if
yeah,
like
definition.
that's really what it comes down to. It's
So-
not that people are saying that there's no truth. Well, some people will
So-
say that, but there are people who say that who believe there's truth, but they question their ability to know the truth.
do you question the ability of the infallible God to convey truth to you, even though you have a fallen mind? Because that's where people always try to say that they're being humble by admitting that they could be wrong.
Right. No.
But this is the thing. If
Yeah.
there is an all-powerful, all-knowing God out there who desires to have a personal relationship with you, he will find a way to transmit knowledge to you.
Well, I will say I certainly hope that's true. I do. I hope that's true. But it would be intellectually dishonest for me to say that I believe that in my heart. I hope it's true, and that's one of the you could say that's one of the theories in life that I'm questioning, because the stakes are really high. You know, like I can't afford to get this wrong. If I'm wrong, you know, I'm literally. You know,
Well, the Apostle Paul said, if Christ is not raised, we are to be pitied most among all men, because
Yeah.
if he has not been raised, then eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. There's no judgment.
In a sense, he was acknowledging that he could be wrong. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what if?
Well, I mean, but he also was blinded by the incarnate Christ after he had risen from
Yeah,
the dead.
it's a little
So
different. Yeah.
and
I haven't had that experience. You
Yeah.
know, and it's one thing. Like I have talked to people who have had transcendental. They say they've had transcendental experiences, and part of my mind is like, you know what, I can't believe it until I see it. But another part of mine is like, well, I can extend the benefit of the doubt. And enough people that I trust have told that to me that I'm like, okay, maybe I can sort of file that away and carry on with this way of thinking and just test it as I go, because like I said, it's not that I doubt the truth exists. It's I doubt my ability to perceive it. And now beyond that, I also doubt my ability. I don't know what my motives are. You know,
Speaking of transcendental experiences, Nick, I listening to the last week's podcast, you never gave us the off mic explanation of your encounter, whatever it was. It was super nebulous. I don't know what you were referring to, but are you there?
I'm just probably not ready, you know.
Yep, I'm here.
Mike,
Yeah, I'm just sticking a pin in this one so we're reminded for next week. I want to hear the story, whatever it was.
Yeah, I totally forgot. I mean, we was late when we ended last time.
No, I know.
But yeah, I mean, I'd gladly tell you guys. I just, like I said, didn't want to do it on cast, that's all.
Yep.
well, don't do it now then.
He's not.
we want to have you in crystal clear, high definition audio.
High definition ears, you know.
So,
Oh, yeah?
I think the applicability of this story will become instantly clear based on whether or not it keeps people's attention, so I may veer off from the story. It's not that long, but I think last cast I referenced the fact that I had a huge crisis of faith, and then I aborted my I aborted my attempt to leave the faith because I called BS on myself. I basically realized that the crisis that I was having was not an intellectual one, was not that I had seen evidences that were proving that I couldn't believe in the God of the Bible. I realized when it came down to it, I was intensely dissatisfied with my life, and I wanted to take things into my own hands. And that was a really, really weird experience because, so what, Jordan, you were talking about, you would like it to be true. So my mother died in a car crash. My father started doing all kinds of craziness. It's a really long story, but, he is the one that taught me the Bible. And so seeing him just all over the map doing some pretty terrible things, made me obviously question, well, did the stuff he taught me lead him to this, or is he, just not being true to the principles that he taught me? And I was thinking through that, and on top of that, not necessarily directly related to my mother, but I was the oldest of 5 kids, so I quit college to take care of my siblings, and I fell into insane depression because my only interaction with people my age or older was my father, and those were all fights it was just terrible. So I was super depressed, and I started asking some hard questions at my church, and in my church at the time, the pastor, good guy as far as I know, but very immature and did not know the Bible very good, which is probably shouldn't be a pastor then, but so I started asking him some of these questions, and he basically just said, have faith harder. And, and that was not a very helpful answer.
He's like, are you putting God on trial?
Well, no, he's just basically, yeah, I mean, the thing is there were the same guy. Yeah, there were biblical answers to my questions, which he just didn't have, which was, troubling. That's kind of the whole point of a pastor. But, so I started I feel like what I was doing, and I don't know that this is what everybody does who starts walking away from Christianity, but I felt like I was sticking my finger down my throat emotionally. Like I was seeing if I could vomit this thing up, but I didn't think that I was doing that. I thought that these were genuine questions, and that and I would not be satisfied with the answers. And when it came to a head one night, my father wanted to have family devotions to read the Bible. So it was like 8:00 at night. We sat down. He was reading the Bible, and I started yelling like, "This is bullshit! This is bullshit! If God is real, let him stick his hand right through the roof right now!" which terrified me because I was still like. I was like, what if he does? I didn't want that to happen. I realized as I was asking for it, I was like, God, and it's weird because it wasn't, I wasn't completely attacking the faith. Even in that moment, I was trying to categorize what I was feeling with people who ultimately wound up in the fold. So I was saying, maybe I'm a doubting Thomas. Doubting Thomas is the disciple who needed to see the holes in Jesus' hand, and it's portrayed.
Yeah, Doubting Thomas, he was the honest guy.
Well, I mean, I think the other guys were honest. They were just I can't think of another word, but more gullible. That's not the right word. They were more trusting. I mean, they knew this man. Oh yeah, well, that's not how I would want to characterize it, but I can't think of. They were more trusting, and there were the three disciples that were the inner circle. I can't remember their names, but I believe that Thomas was not one of that inner circle, so he probably didn't know Jesus as much. But you know, if my mother came in and said, "I've been raised from the dead," I would not ask to see the holes. I know my mom. I would not ask that. So the people anyway.
No, you wouldn't have to see the holes. You see her. That's evidence enough. She's there. She's alive.
Exactly.
She's raised from the dead.
Exactly. And so for the rest of the disciples, it wasn't a thing of gullibility. It was just that they knew him. But Thomas, maybe didn't know him as much. Maybe his mind he had those nagging questions. So it's portrayed as kind of an affront to Christ.
So real quick, I want to ask one quick question about that, because this is very, for me, this is very near and dear to my heart. Doubting Thomas, as far as I see it, everyone who never met Jesus when he was alive is in Doubting Thomas's position.
Yeah.
And it's not unfair for the rest of us to ask for the same thing he did and he got.
Yeah.
And when he got it, he then knew, good, okay, cool. And now he wasn't Doubting Thomas anymore. Now he was Faithful Thomas.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So why don't the rest of us get that? See, that's one of my big questions. And I don't feel any shame for that question. I feel like it's a real, genuine question from my heart.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't have an answer. I don't know the mind of God, and I don't think right now I'm going to hazard a speculation. but
Sure, I didn't expect you to. Right?
Yeah, right. But that was certainly the question that I was asking at the moment. And when a hand didn't come down out of the roof, I kind of rage quit my family, and I walked out into the lawn, and I thought I would never enter my house again. And I stopped myself. It was a full moon. I looked up at the moon, and because I'd heard people say, in my moment of doubt, I looked up at the moon, and I realized there has to be a God. And I looked up at the moon, and I was like, we've been to the moon. It's a chunk of dirt. It's not doing it for me, God.
Screw the moon.
But, I mean, clearly, this whole time, I was still yelling at a God that I, at a very deep level, still did believe existed.
Yeah.
But I was dissatisfied with.
How can you be mad at something that doesn't exist?
Exactly. And
that's my position. I'm not mad at Thor. I'm not mad at Zeus. I'm not mad at Zarathustra or Buddha. And I'm not mad at Jesus. And I'm not mad at Elohim. I'm not mad at any of them because I just don't have any reason to think they're real.
Yeah. Well, and but the thing that changed for me, so I walked back into the house just because I was afraid, because I had no idea what my life would look like if I literally did. Because from my perspective, if I was not going to be a Christian, I just didn't even want to deal with the aftermath. I was going to burn all my bridges, and I was just going to go do whatever the heck I wanted. And I did not want to deal with the cesspool that my family was becoming because of my father's dereliction of his duty. And what?
Could have started a rock band.
Rock band? Yeah, but I mean...
Nice.
But my 6-year-old retarded sister would have suffered. I mean... so... Yeah, I mean, but I wasn't thinking about rock bands, but I would have gone out and done something that I saw as fulfilling. But I was terrified because I kind of doubted my ability to even be successful if I went off on my own. I had not had a job because of all of the things that were needed of me in the home, so all I'd ever done was school and work around the house, so I was kind of afraid to have a job. Anyway, so out of fear, I went back into the house and kind of just upset my family more because I was still ranting and raving and trying to work through some of my thoughts out loud, and find me a verse, find me, like show me something that will back me off of this ledge. And they didn't have anything, and so I was kind of being rude to them too. And I went back out one more time, and same thing. I was like, okay, that's it. You know, unless something supernatural happens, unless this peace dawns upon me, I'm going to leave. But then, like, it was weird. I felt like I sank down into myself and saw that the actual motivation was selfishness, that I did not want to deal with the
Yeah.
Hello? Hello?
Hey, sorry guys, I lost you. I guess we're just down the desert too far or something.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, if we lose you again, okay. Your other call is still on the line, though. Hello?
What's on the line?
Your other call, but it dropped. It's fine.
He's back. He's back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, it's fine. Anyway, what I was saying is the reason that I didn't walk away, I didn't have any huge revelation except about myself. Like I was able to realize that the main reasons that I was going to walk away, I hadn't seen any new evidence to the contrary, and I had seen plenty of evidences to God's existence and his work in my life. And the only reason I was walking away is because I didn't want to continue to be accountable to him and to my family and to the things that he had saddled me with. I just thought it was crap, and I was done with it, and I didn't want to feel those things anymore. And I thought that something would be different if I just rage quit it and went off and crawled under a rock and died or whatever. I don't know what my plan was, but and it was incredibly humbling. And if you guys would have known me prior to that moment, I think you would have found me even more intolerably sure of myself than I currently am, in a way that I do not think was God honoring. And so, anyway, moral of the story is that for me, at least experientially, I saw that the most convincing thing that ever got me to try to reject my faith was not evidence to the contrary, but was in fact just my own selfishness, that I did not want to be face to face with that God, and that I thought I could escape him somehow. But as I shared with the, yelling at the God that I was claiming I didn't think existed, kind of gave the lie to that. So.
Right.
Yeah, that's cool that you recognized your root. You felt that connection was still there, even though you had severed those or you were trying to sever the connections which were very troublesome or difficult, I suppose. And I totally relate to that. That's very, I understand there. It's very powerful. I think many have that story similar. So I guess it's okay. Yeah, we gotta. Well, anyway, thanks for sharing, man. I didn't know that. That's very insightful.
Yeah.
It's good to know. You guys would probably be bored with anything I have to say about my dumb old life, so.
That I think he's requesting a chant. Andrew.
No, some other time.
Andrew, come on, man. Come on, no one's life is boring.
It's
just how you put it out there.
I would suggest this is my inner commercially minded producer speaking.
Keep it to one story per cast.
Yeah, exactly. And sort of like,
yeah.
Because it's like a good story. You don't show all your good cards all at the same time. You play them out.
I'll do a one sentence summary.
Okay.
Right now, I'm a Christian.
The end.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, I'm a Christian. That's just. We'll save that for another time. It's very I'll try and shorten it down, but we'll
Well,
It's only
we
a-
want it to be adequately. We want your story to be adequately explained. So
okay.
I would say don't think about it in terms of length. Think about it as
No, let me just cut it.
is it stuff that you're. And I'm not saying for this time, but for the next time.
No,
Just think
right now, I'll just quick. I was on the road driving. I felt this peace that I have never felt before in my life
like a gun.
after I prayed. No,
sorry.
what?
I'm just kidding.
I don't get it.
P-I-E-C-E.
Oh, peace, that peace.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
A Glock. No, I felt peace, like tranquility peace. And I took that to mean that somebody had my back. Be it an angel or a god. I was praying to the Christian God, so I don't know. I've heard atheists dismiss that as a chemicals in the brain. However, I'm not going to deny that it happened. Whether it is chemicals of the brain, I can even agree that it may have been chemicals in the brain that just happened to be there after a relief, feeling. But it happened. It was real for me. My truth is heavily based off of perception, and that was my perception. I also, doubting Thomas. So that proved it for me. Pretty much sold me. I'm very adamant that he cares about us because what I felt at that time, very indescribable sort of calm. All the turmoil in my life was just set aside for a moment, and I felt pretty darn good. Anyway, that's my story. That's
That's a little teaser trailer.
No, there's no long version. I don't want to do that to you guys. Anyway.
Well, as long as we actually are doing the stories, Nick, do you want to take a stab? Is it too hard over the phone? Would you want to take a stab at what led you out of Mormonism? I know you already. Dang it!
Give us a teaser.
He doesn't want to, obviously.
He's like, he's asking me.
He's like, oh no, they're gonna think I dodged it.
If he's between Phoenix and
oh yeah, it's
California,
a dead zone, man.
he may not get another
Yeah.
cell tower for another.
Well, maybe we should wrap it up. then.
Yeah, sounds.
I mean,
sounds
we're
good.
sitting at about an hour and a half.
Okay,
It's
yeah,
pretty
that's
long.
substantial.
We've had a nice arc here.
Mm-hmm.
We've had some substantial conversation, and let's not confuse this with hanging out as friends, because we're not friends, right? No, I'm just kidding. But if we're trying,
What?
yellow.
Oh,
Turn
okay.
it, aim the mic at the mic.
Hey,
It's not on speaker.
it is.
There we go. Okay.
Say that again.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You weren't on speaker for a second.
We're probably gonna wrap it up so you're not missing anything. So enjoy the desert. Hello? Yeah, we're ending it if you can hear us, but we can't hear you. So bye.
The desert.
I'll just text him.
Disappoint.
Well,
So you guys
okay.
wrap it up. I'll just text him.
All right. So conclusion. Let's get a strong conclusion. So I think we sort of concluded that the presuppositional approach is not the silver bullet that what's the guy's name again?
Cy 10 Brugenkate.
I'm just gonna call him Cy. It's not the golden bullet that
It's a lead bullet.
it's
Yeah,
useful
it's
in some.
a- it's a
So I
lead
would
bullet.
encourage you. So if you're gonna actually try to take issue with the concepts that he's dealing with, I would encourage.
It's not the concepts. It's the application.
Okay.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
taking issue with.
Okay.
I think it has applications, like I said, but it's not a silver bullet. It's not the be all end all. It's not the argument that's going to win all this. It all.
Yeah, I can see both. Yeah, generally agree with that.
Sorry about that again.
No, it's cool. We're just wrapping it up, so if you can just say bye to the mic.
Any final thoughts?
Oh, you guys,
Yeah,
Well, actually, a couple more things came to my mind about Psy, but we don't have to.
well, no, yeah.
Go for it. Yeah, we're
do
talking. So I think we're sitting at about an hour and a half. So let's. I don't know if we're gonna actually put this episode out, but let's say we get like 10 minutes of filler, and then that way we have room to edit if we want.
Yeah, I'd love to hear.
Yeah, and if you have thoughts, especially if it pertains to specifically to Psy, then it's relevant to the episode. So go for it.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to just go ahead and put Psy to bed, I guess. But, I mean, not that we couldn't bring it up again later, but
Okay.
want to just bring it full circle, I guess. So some of the things that came to my mind was he said he'd never do a Bible study with non-Christian or a non-believer, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And that really, actually, that one really surprised me. But then I heard his explanation and thought, okay, I guess I see why he said that. But I found it really hard to believe that any Christian or any believer would agree with him on that. Given that Christianity is usually in the mood to try to convert others, right? To spread to spread the belief. So in that, I mean, okay, so you'll have discussions and he'll preach, or he'll have discussions and he'll preach, but he'd never actually sit down and have a Bible study. And so I thought that was pretty interesting. What did you guys think about that?
That is.
Okay, well, there's the Bible study where you're looking at it as sort of a document that you're investigating, and there's a Bible study where you're opening your heart up to the content within, and you're not just like a Bible study. It's not like you said, like a good Bible study. It's people are opening up their hearts to each other. So I can see why he would hesitate to do that with someone who believes it's a fairy tale.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what he meant by it, but I think that Jordan's point is well taken. At St. John's College, we spend a good portion of one of the semesters reading the Bible as a text, and even though we were studying the Bible together, I would never call that a Bible study. And that was actually a running joke in class. Did you do your Bible study reading for tonight? And the reason it was a joke is because they clearly felt like that's not what they were doing. They were not, so that is a contextualized term that it's like, and that's why my family didn't even use the word Bible study. It was devotions, because we were showing our devotion to the God that we believe exists. Versus, so I'm sure. I mean, Sai throughout the documentary, he shouts many a verse at people from the Bible. And he studiously examines the application of that with those same unbelievers. So, in effect, they're studying the Bible, but it's not a Bible study. So I agree with Jordan's take on that.
But then again, if someone wants to sit in
there. What about if what if it's someone, I mean, you can have people that are like, I don't believe in that book, it's just made up fairy tales. Okay, that person, you're probably not going to sit down and read the Bible with them. But what about another person who that's never heard of the whole thing, and you're
they're just curious.
Together, do with that. So that's the difference, maybe.
Well, I mean, so Sai would have to take everything in the Bible as a precedent that he should follow. And there's the Ethiopian eunuch in I think it's the Book of Acts, and this Ethiopian man is coming to learn more about the Hebrew Scriptures because he's convinced that Yahweh is the true God, and he meets, I want to say Peter, but I'm not sure, and Peter expounds the entire Old Testament to him, showing how everything pointed to Christ. And so that guy was an unbeliever. I mean, he was trying to be a Jewish believer, and he had a Bible study with him. So I think certainly in that sense, now that's certainly different than somebody that's shouting at you, there is no such thing as truth on a college campus. I mean, but,
well, I would say it's like you wouldn't go, as a Christian, you wouldn't go to a mosque and, say, blasphemy, blasphemy. You would have a certain level of respect for their beliefs, right?
Yeah, it's more of a connection thing, human to human. We're all human, so there should be reason for us to approach each other with respect for each other's beliefs, because we can sympathize with the human experience. For example, even though we're not atheists, we can understand maybe at some point we had some doubts. and we can connect. We should be able to connect. I think Jesus would ask us to connect with these people in order to, so that we can, better sympathize with them. It's not like it's rocket scientists. All we have to do is connect with people. He's asking. This is a little too crude of an approach for me. I'm a little more soft-minded, I guess. Oh no, we lost him again.
The desert.
Okay, we should wrap this up. My goodness. All right.
Okay. Well, all right. So, I guess, yeah. So I'd say okay. Let's share our little conclusions. Let's
Okay, go ahead.
Briefly, and I pretty much basically said that I think that that size. Mm-hmm. Opa Gangnam Style. I think that it's not a silver bullet, his approach, but it's definitely appropriate in some context. But you have to take each person in each situation. You have to consider the whole picture in the way that you engage with them.
Well, and I would be really interested to hear Cornelius Van Til's take on what Seitan Bruggencate is doing. So Cornelius Van Til was the scholar who wanted to synthesize all philosophical arguments into
A formula.
Well, into what should Christianity think of those?
Okay.
And so he takes and he took serious issue with one of the greatest Christian scholars, Thomas Aquinas, who's a Catholic theologian.
He's one of the OGs, man.
He's one of the OGs, and basically every person since him has had to deal with his ideas. And he did something that is kind of responsible for like 60% of the kind of weird stuff that you see in the Catholic Church, because what he did is he tried to integrate Aristotle into Catholic theology.
He tried to bridge the divide.
Well, what Thomas Aquinas tried to do, he believed that the way that we commune with God is through our rationality, through reason. And so that the image of God in man is not any other feature, it is reason. And so we can actually reason to God, and he believed that the person who had best done that prior to the arrival of Jesus Christ was Aristotle. Therefore, I don't think that Thomas Aquinas ever said this, but other people have said that Plato and Aristotle and the Western modes of thought prepared the world for Christ. And there's some interesting stuff in that, and God controls the whole world, so sure. But that doesn't mean then that you have to use Aristotelian logic to base your theology on. And there's some weird stuff that comes in when everything is a bottom up, where it's all man reasoning to God, and God couldn't be like that because that doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
And
I can see that.
Right. Yeah.
So anyway, Cornelius Van Til.
But reason is certainly a component. Yeah.
But
it's not the end all. It's not the silver bullet.
No. But I'm curious if Cornelius Van Til would feel like Seitan Bruggencate is even faithfully reproducing his line of reasoning, and two, if he would approve of this method of engaging with unbelievers. But
right.
And I don't know. I mean, he's been dead for a while, but he's got a lot of lectures, and he's a really interesting guy, Van Til. If you guys were interested, I could send links, but.
Probably not. I have enough. I'm reading. I have a lot of stuff that I'm trying to get through right now.
But the reason that's so helpful to me is because having to go through all of those philosophers at St. John's, it's like, what do I think of these people? And
I could have done that.
And Van Til was the first person that actually understood what all of them were saying. First Christian apologist that I ever saw that actually understood what all of them were saying, had read them, and gave a Christian response. And so his response is antithesis. That the human mind, the fool has said in his heart, and that also the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. So that fundamentally, even if you are formally doing logic right, because you have started from the wrong position, you will always wind up with a skewed endpoint.
I'm thinking about that as I read through Marxian theories about spatial and environmental justice. I'm like, this stuff is bananas
Mm-hmm.
because they're starting with, just with the wrong presupposition.
Yeah, you can start. Let's take math. You can start with like this plus symbol means that I subtract something. You could start with that supposition, and you're gonna end off in left field.
Yeah.
Like that's a good example, a metaphor, I suppose.
So, what's your
My take is, you guys both have good points. This, let's see, presuppositionalism is it's a new entity to me. I'm kind of the thought that God, for some reason, has given us the power of reason, or has allowed us the free will to choose to eat the apple. Anyway, for some reason we have reason, so we will use it in overall mankind, regardless of what an individual may try to do. Just overall, mankind is going to progress further and further in technology, in reason, in information, in everything, and is going to eventually become closer to God. We're already seeing like a large amount of just conceited ideas just bouncing all over the place. This, unfortunately, is one of them. It relies on reason a little too much to my liking, but on this method being checked by the word, from a Christian standpoint, by the word, is always going to be good, in my opinion. So any additions that I could find in terms of verses or whatever, if I had the time and energy, I'm sure I would hunt them down. But I'm more of an individualist, so don't want to go into that. But like I said, he's a ally in the Christian sense. You know what I mean? It's not we're all on the same side, but not my approach. That's all I'm gonna say.
In some cases, that would be the approach.
Yeah,
But
like you said,
would it work for?
I think it's a case by case basis. That's my opinion there.
Well,
so on that one,
we should probably wrap this up.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
And do you want to throw any last comments or?
Bye.
Goodbye. Tune in next time when we talk about.
We gotta find a name. We'll find a name someday. I don't know.
Yeah, we got to figure out what we're gonna call this thing. All right.
All right.
Cool. Peace out.
Later.